You're listening to Masonry Principles, your guide to building better buildings, with hosts Amanda Bedian and Phil Leden. Thanks for listening to Masonry Principles. Today, Phil and I have the honor of speaking with Paul Cantarella Jr. out of Cantarella Sons out of Western Massachusetts. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Amanda.
Yeah, and I thought it would just be great. You've got a heavy influence on social media, and you and I have run into each other at a few national meetings, and I think it's important that we talk about relevancy and why contractors need to and should be staying relevant in this day and age of the internet. As simple as it may sound, I know the internet's been around for a while, but it seems like some of the contractors, some of them don't even have websites, let alone portfolios or good pictures on their website. And I know you said you've recently done yours. And again, with the social media background, like what propels you to want to stay present?
Well, if you asked me this question probably 6 years ago, I probably would laugh at you because I always thought in our business that social media, websites, none of that really mattered. Most of our work out here is kind of file sub bid. That's not going to do nothing for us.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, somehow I'd say 5 years ago, I really got into LinkedIn somehow. I think basically for me, I don't really do Facebook. So it was kind of, maybe that was like my thing I got into. And I don't really know too much other things other than masonry. So I just it was easy for me to talk masonry. And it seems like I would get a lot of comments from people. And I started going to some of the meetings. And I would be so surprised at the amount of people that would walk up to me and, say, geez, I really like all your stuff. Keep going with it. Keep the posts up. You're doing a great job for the industry kind of thing. And I kind of laughed a little bit at first. My wife would pick on me a lot about all my posts. And I just said, I don't, like I always try to say, I don't know anything else. I only know masonry. So it's probably the only thing I can really talk about. Well, it started to the point where there was so many people telling me this that I was kind of like, boy, there are a lot of people kind of looking at what I'm doing and what I'm saying. And for me, the biggest thing of that, which goes back to really where I'm trying to go with this, is the majority of the people that would walk up to me liking my stuff never once actually clicked on one of my posts or even actually said anything. So it goes to show you really don't realize how many are looking at something or influenced by something. Because I think all of us, just like in Facebook nowadays, you look for your likes or you look for a comment. Well, like I said, the majority of these people, they weren't even interacting. So you probably do not realize with social media how many people you truly are reaching.
Right.
And I think the websites nowadays, again, it was something where you don't need one. But you do not probably realize how many people are Googling from out of the areas, because there's so many general contractors from working out of state. People are Googling, and at the end of the day, I still know people that don't have a website.
No, it's crazy. I mean, it's your storefront, ideally,
Yes, it is, and it's twofold to me. Yes, it doesn't need to be very deep, but at the same time, it does. It is your storefront. Someone's not going to walk in your store if it looks raggedy.
Right. And you need to stay relevant. Like I know, like I was telling Phil before we started recording, like my website for UMI is 5 years old and it's already needs to be updated. I already need new pictures, and that's just to give you a little timeline. There's some websites, Phil recently updated his. How old was yours?
I think ours was built in the 90s. It had been updated since then, but I think what we really struggled with was our website, especially on mobile devices. Paul, I'm sure everyone that works for you, everyone's got a cell phone anymore. And so, if you can't open up someone's website on your phone in your pocket, that automatically just kind of leaves you kind of wondering, what are they doing?
Yes, in this day and age, how can I not reach you on my phone, which everybody has?
It's Be hard to meet somebody that's like, I have a flip phone. I mean,
No, it is true. Like I said, I like how you said it about the storefront.
yeah, and that's why I really wanted to pick your brain a little bit because, you are relevant on social media and picking LinkedIn, that's your platform of business to business, right? It's not consumer to business and you're dealing with you've got architects, engineers, contractors, manufacturers, all of them are seeing your content and where Phil and I are trying to fill in the gap is getting the interactions and letting them know what resources are available and why to build with Masonry because him and I, both of our organizations have recently invested in marketing campaigns. And if you talk to other groups, they look at us like we have four eyes, but it's important. And to your point, it is because you don't know who is seeing it.
Yes.
We can target as much as we want and we can find our niche groups and like obviously ours for our organizations are architects, engineers, real estate developers, contractors. Everybody falls under the AEC umbrella, but like I'm glad that you bring up the point of people that were coming up to you weren't even interacting with your stuff.
It was, yes, and I mean, it did seem to be generally maybe a little bit more of the older crowd, but those are the people that are high up.
Right. Those are the decision makers and that's
Yes.
it's a big conversation to have. And I know some of our contractors they don't even have social media handles. So we're like, I'm going to tag them because I've got donations or, so and so showed up to introduce themselves to, a group of students. If I can't tag you, then those kids can't find you.
Yes. Yes. It is, though. I agree with you.
Yeah, it just makes it difficult. And I know, we started talking, but as far as the social media, I think it's really important. And from a contractor's perspective, I think by telling the truth, like you didn't really see the need, and now you do. Like you see the importance.
Oh, and it's even on a bigger level for me because I think for so many years people sat on their. I think masonry pretty much sat on the history of masonry, and it was we're never going to have to worry about losing wall space. Well, for the last 15 years, the wood industry has been using basically government money to fight and say wood's better than masonry and cheaper. And it's time that masonry really has to jump back into the game because everybody's been sitting back too long, and
Yeah.
it's time to get off our hands and kind of push back now and tell them that wood is not cheaper.
Well, yeah, and I always tell our board too. I mean, when we look at the masonry industry kind of nationally, Amanda's spot on. Some of them don't even have social media handles. Some of the national organizations, and I mean, a lot of the websites, can be improved upon. I mean, when we look at masonry, I always tell our board, everyone thinks about the pyramids. They don't think about cavity wall system that's super high performing that we have available now.
You, I have said this forever. I said nobody really. I don't think most people, and probably even architects, truly know masonry. When you grow up in school, no one talked about masonry. Talked about carpenters. Talked about electricians. If you ever heard anything about masonry, you might hear about somebody doing a chimney job down the street. And I just was saying this again to somebody a couple of weeks ago. It's our trade is weird for some reason. I don't know how to explain it. Like people like I don't think most of my friends probably really realize what we do. I think they think we're
Yeah.
out building chimneys.
Yeah, and my wife's family, I mean, they thought I was a Freemason.
Yes. Yeah. Like I said to you, I do not know why, but the masonry industry is just it's like kind of been left out there, kind of just hanging. And I don't think people truly understand the relevance of how important masonry is to our communities and society at the end of the day, to tell you the truth. And as much as you hate to say it, I mean, when you have stuff that like happened Friday night, you hope maybe that's another thing to show about how important sometimes masonry maybe can be for people to realize. I'm not saying it obviously could save all kinds of people, but I know masonry shelters can hold up a heck of a lot better than a wood structure.
Absolutely. That's basic logic of bringing it to the table of it is a superior material that is stronger, more durable, resilient, and it's like our best kept secret. We don't want to talk about it.
Yes, you're correct.
You're spot on with what happened this last weekend. I mean, as a country, we don't focus on resilience. I mean, I just got a call earlier today, and we're talking about buildings that were built in 2014, and I mean, that was 7 years ago. Why aren't we talking about what happened 2 days ago?
Yeah,
I think, I mean, yeah, we need to focus on the now. And what is Masonry doing now? I mean, especially with some of the steel shortages, price escalations this year. I mean, masonry is the most cost-effective material. Not only that, but for less cost, you get that resilience, you get sustainability. I mean, the wood industry is not sustainable. They can say that as much as they want, but look at any deforested area; they're not a sustainable material. Whereas masonry, I mean, we do provide that longevity and that sustainability. And it's like, why are we refusing to focus on the now? We want to celebrate wins from 30 years ago. And
yep.
I don't get it.
What do you think it is, Paul?
I think it's twofold. I think it's again the wood industry has taken our money and went to the government and has really pushed masonry out of the market. And the other thing with that, though, said is people are not educated because it was just like when you held that event. I think it was 2 years ago. I talked to you about it when we were at the ECA meeting. You were bringing up about the bond beams, and the architects couldn't fathom not using the steel beams and putting the bond beams. Where, again, I think you educated people that there are ways to save money. I don't think people truly have the numbers of what it costs and what the comparison for the end cost maybe is compared to building with other materials.
From a contractor perspective, where do you think, like organizations like Phil and I, it is our job to advocate, educate, and promote architects, engineers, contractors, the whole umbrella, right? How can we get them to actually apply what we're teaching them and or think differently so when they are designing their next building, we I know Phil's doing a phenomenal job flipping projects in Michigan. It's something that I'm working on here in New York.
Oh, I was just going to say to you, I feel like the process has started.
It's starting. Is there something, whether it's us as organizations or is it,
Well, you've obviously had 2 years of a major slowdown. That's all, and it is baby steps. But I do feel people are starting to finally trying to speak up, trying to get stuff out on social media.
oh, good, because I feel defeated sometimes.
Um, I I hear you because I definitely do because I won't lie. After your event, I did feel that way because I was like, how come these guys don't have faith in us to build a bomb beam for them?
Right. I know I've talked to some guys, some companies, and they're like, "Oh, we had a bad project 30 years ago." I'm like, "We're in the year 2021, dude. What happened that was so bad that it has just put such a bad taste in your mouth? And why is it taking 30 years for us to like mend the fences?"
I think it becomes
It's at one time.
yeah, because honestly, because once you get that one bad taste, it was already easier to keep plugging in next year in the computer because you already had all the info in there on how to build it out of wood. I mean, honestly, like let's talk about rebar spacing. I've been for 3 years now. They completely changed the rule, the codes, and really that with the block strength, rebar can be stretched out, but it's not because they're doing copy paste.
We have a full 1 hour presentation on over engineering where, I mean, if you're in a low seismic zone like New York or Michigan, I mean, we could go 10 foot on center. And I'm actually working on an article right now for Structure Magazine, even with a 6-inch block, 12-foot tall exterior wall, bars at 80 inches on center. Engineers in Michigan just don't take advantage of that. They put them at 48 inches on center because that's what they're used to.
Copy paste. It's copy freaking paste. It's just like every spec book. Half of them are just the same copy. I mean? My old man said it as a kid, boilerplate. Well, they're still boilerplate specs, most of them. I can't tell you the amount, you know what I mean? Because again, people are just copying and pasting because it's just as easy, copy and paste.
And that's kind of where it's funny. The conversation is so fresh. So, not to get too far off track, but my son is a sophomore in high school. Colleges are starting to reach out. He's trying to think about what he wants to do. He comes home tonight and he says, "Well, I want to be a civil engineer." I go, "Well, why?" Why do you want to be? We have enough engineers. Why do you want to be a civil, you know? And he's like, mom, you don't know what you're talking about, blah, blah. And I was like, no, Jonathan, if you're going to be an engineer, you need to value your community and stop building disposable communities. Why aren't we teaching these kids, right? The young kids that are then going into the workforce they're the next engineers. And yet we are still seeing so much wood frame construction. Who's drilling that home? I mean, the wood industry has so much money that they're getting into your higher education. Masonry in New York at RPI, it's an every other year, one semester course. Why aren't we bringing it into the classrooms more? What is it that we can do better?
So it's partially a funding thing. I mean, wood design software is free. If you want to go online and design a house or anything, you can design all the studs, headers, everything completely for free. Weyerhaeuser has free software online. Their code book is a free PDF online. So a lot of the things we charge people for, all their webinars are free for credit through the American Wood Council. And so the things that we charge people for, I mean, we're indirectly putting up kind of that barrier to entry. Where
Right.
now, oh, you want to design with masonry? Okay, well, you're going to pay us to teach you how to design with masonry. The other industries aren't doing that.
When you're working with Paul on the contractor side, when you're working with the architects, you're mostly working with architects. You're not really working with the engineers, are you?
On my end, no. And honestly, you're bringing to another point. Is that we never are able to get in to be able to try to help anybody out.
That was my next point of like,
I've said I've been saying that for 10, 15 years, that it always sucks because maybe it's more when you're in your own town and you see something and you're building a project and you're going, you really could have saved a lot of money.
right, taxpayers' money. Because you got to think, masonry is a lot of public money, right? It's your
Yes.
prisons, it's your institutions, it's taxpayer money, it's schools. It's funny, like why, and again, this is just a candid conversation, and maybe architects are listening and maybe they'll give us the answer because we're just creating our own at this point. Why don't they want to work with the contractors to build better buildings, right? You guys are the professional building it, they're the professionals designing it. You'd think it would just come together.
I think it goes back to what I said about like maybe with my post. All right, that a lot of those people that were interacting were the older crowd, where they're the decision makers. But what have they been deciding for the last 20 years? What have they been building with?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Where we're hopefully, we're starting to get the younger people in those positions. Actually, I think we were even talked about IMI a couple 2 years ago about the masonry camp
Hmm.
that they had, and I think they started that 15 years ago. And like somebody said, now finally those kids are now finally starting to get into job positions where they are starting to have maybe a little bit more authority.
As a contractor, do you feel as if we're going through a renaissance?
Yes, I do. I mean, I'm huge into the MCAA, and like I said, it was probably 4 years ago to five that they really brought up about the wood industry, like they said, got milk commercial. Well, that was basically the farmers getting together. Well, that's what the wood industry did 10,
Hmm.
12 years ago. And I think it's finally, at least as a group, national group, we're trying to stand up to that, and we're trying to do our own got milk.
Right. And that's the checkoff program. We do have a separate episode that informs people on the checkoff program, what it's about.
People are thinking, people are trying, they know we have to get masonry back to the forefront. You know what I mean? And yeah, I think it just goes along with a lot of the educational programs, like the stuff that
Hmm.
you guys are doing, and really trying to educate people. Like, again, I don't think you might not realize the people that are looking at it.
No, and there's so many different ways we can cut it, because what Phil and I do, and I think collaboratively, we work well in trying to inform people, but it's like just the more you know. It's important if you're not familiar with the product, but you're interested in it. There are groups, there's us, and there's the contractors, and there's national groups. And to go back on the national group that you're a part of, which is MCAA, Mason Contractors Association of America, which is just a contractor member organization, correct?
Yes, and they also have suppliers.
And suppliers. Okay, so Paul and I have gone to a couple national events, and again, going back on the topic of relevancy, I mean, that must be an area where you get a lot of information before it's published.
Yeah. The amount of between the codes, safety, I'm ahead of the game because they're way ahead of anybody before people even know it.
Right. And then yet you and I are pretty much the only ones coming out of the Northeast, and I say this to share that information. It's like your best kept secret, right?
It sucks because as my man from Easy Grout, Damien Lang, always says, you got to help you got to help the competition out because at the end of the day, it only helps our industry out. I always have a very hard time with it,
Right.
but I do try to tell people about the MCA. But it is my best kept secret, by far, probably the best thing I ever did for my business.
It is, and it's great. And seeing you out in Memphis, that was a great for me as a director of the organization, like meeting with all the manufacturing vendors, starting to put faces to names and listening. Everyone's got issues, right? It just becomes this soundboard of where you're sharing information. More contractors need to get involved, and it's so important, especially now coming out of a pandemic. What are the trends? What's coming up? And MCAA did a great job at sharing that information at that meeting. It just somebody as simple as me, all of the people I met were owners of these companies. So if you're not part of any organizations nationally, how do you think people are getting their information?
I think everybody kind of has their own little thing in each part, maybe their state. But again, I don't think they're getting it at the higher level. I think you're piecemealing it. And my thing for me is when you come together, I guess at the national level, I feel that at least you can come together as one because I know there's a lot of you get the union non-union thing. Well, at a national level, we all have to come together. And when you go back to your area, you do your own thing. But I think nationally, we really need to come together as a group to really make masonry great again. I firmly believe in it.
Absolutely. And I think, you talk about coming together, and it's like, it's now, right? Like we got to do it now.
It's like I said to you, it's now or never because the wood industry is
Right.
beating the crap out of us. I mean, it blows me away sometimes on the MCA site. They have a fact list. And I mean, I'm just looking at masonry's life cycle is unsurpassed by any other building material.
And we got to do a better job of talking about it. And it can't fall on, or it can't just be on me and Phil and the regional directors right across the country. It's got to be a bigger conversation. It's got to come from the black producers. It's got to come from the contractors. You start creating a buzz, if you will.
Yes, masonry rocks.
Exactly. And even you just staying, you comment on my stuff, but like that's staying in the game.
It is, and honestly, as I laugh about saying that to you, is like there's ways to really reach people, which you like the stupid hashtags. You know what I mean? By doing a hashtag, you're going to people that you're not normally going to. I mean, you're getting to people that's a larger audience, in my opinion.
And I think Phil and I learned firsthand, and Phil, please pipe in. But when we started this podcast, we kind of just thought micro and like it was just going to hit Michigan and New York. And then when we pulled our analytics, we had people listening in Germany, California. It's so important. And I'm so glad that we were finally able to get you on to just talk about it. Cause I think that's the first step, right?
Yes, I really do. For me, I can't talk about much else because, like I said in the beginning, I really don't know anything else. I only do know masonry. I definitely love what I do, and my thing is when you get together with like-minded people, you don't really realize the power in that.
Absolutely. You and Phil got to talk in the beginning of this, and Phil's already like, I'll be contacting you because we got to talk about X, Y, and Z. Like, it's the power of communication. It's beautiful.
Yes, it is, and at the end of the day, we all want nothing but our trade to be the best and improve our industry. You know what I mean?
take back our market share and just
Yep.
get back into building better buildings, stronger buildings.
I hate to say what you said at the beginning, but why do you think them pyramids are still standing?
Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially when we talk about wood and combustibility and, fires, tornado, whatever it is. I mean, a couple of years ago, I went to Paris with my wife, and literally right before I went, Notre Dame caught on fire, right? And, burned awful. It's still there. I mean, it was built in what, 1200? And the only things that aren't there are the wood ceilings, and it's like, what the hell? Like, what more do we need to promote than that?
Well, and that's what goes back to my soapbox of we just need to build non-disposable communities again.
I think it goes, and and this is one of my favorites. We all learned it as a kid. I don't know if you guys heard that story, but you ever hear a story of the three little pigs?
Yeah, that's a big one.
All right. Well, I know I learned that at a young age.
And I talk about it when I go into, I'm going into these CTE classrooms and we're doing week-long trainings. And that's the first thing. I'm like, when, you huff and you puff, which one was the one still standing?
Hell yeah. And at the end of the day, masonry, yes, we have the robotics helping us. It's all by hand for the most part. It's an art. And when you drive by that, there really is nothing better than seeing something you had your hands on working.
Right. But it's just so frustrating, like talking to, there's projects happening around us that they're just, well, the masonry budget, it's too high. But is it? Like, let's look at the design.
They're not educated 1 ounce.
Let's have a bigger conversation. But some of these firms, I don't know, they're either not open to it or it's just you don't have that connection with anybody there. So you're just a stranger.
I think it's like any salesman. You know
Right.
what I mean? It's literally, you shouldn't have to, but it's literally back to pounding doors to say, hey, here, we're not gone. We are here and we are better.
Exactly. No, and it just stands true. And we're going into 2022. We're coming out of, we're going to be 2 years inside of this COVID-19 lifestyle. So hopefully we're going to be on the up and up before you know it, but we'll see what happens.
Masonry is easily cleaned and disinfected, a lot easier than any kind of wood.
Well, and even with some of the carbon sequestration stuff, I mean, I'm just really interested to see, how the masonry industry responds. Because I mean, the biggest knock against masonry has always been sustainability, carbon footprint. But I think what we're finding with some of this research is that we don't really have as bad of a carbon footprint as kind of people have been led to believe. And the wood industry for kind of painting us with that image, but I think we've done a lot of research and we're going to come out of this thing a lot better, than we entered it.
Yeah, I do too. And I don't know if you guys have heard about the solar solo block yet.
I haven't.
No.
With it's they should be getting ready to come out. Hopefully, I'm not giving it all away, but
You heard it here. Oh wait, I think I did hear about this
I
in
would think you might have heard. I thought, you know what I mean. I think it's already might have been talking about it in Memphis.
I was gonna say I think they were talking about it in Memphis, but who's the manufacturer?
They're called Solo Block is the name of the company.
Oh, that's the name of the company.
Yep, they'd be working with a block supplier to make the block. Right now, I know they have a 4-inch block and they're working on more. But again, I think it could be another positive for us.
And that I think is also tip in our hat or put a feather in our hat of like we are good at staying relevant. We know it's a traditional art form, right? People think it's old, but like there's all sorts of materials that go into our block that make it sustainable. And like this is another one of just keeping it green.
Yes, I agree. I agree with you wholehearted. Again, not just relying on the old pyramids.
Right. Absolutely. Well, you heard it here. There's a new block in town. Well, thank you so much, Paul. Again, the pleasure is all mine as far as getting able to talk to you and just pick your brain a little bit because I love the stuff that you put out on LinkedIn. And thank you so much for interacting with our stuff. And I wish you the best of luck going into 2022.
No, I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with me. Like I said, I do love talking masonry. That is all
Yeah.
all I've ever done, and like I said, it definitely is my passion.
And to our listeners, take your cell phones out of your pocket, take a picture of a masonry job you designed, and put it online. Let's quit talking about stuff in the past.
Yep.
Ye- Exactly. I like it. Well, with that being said, I hope everyone has a great day, and you can find us on Google, Spotify, and masonryprinciples.com, as well as Apple Podcasts. And if you like this episode, share it with your friends. Have a good day. Thank you for listening to this episode of Masonry Principles. To continue the conversation, be sure to reach out to us by visiting masonryprinciples.com.